When it comes to Onyx, they recently made a post on X and it said that big things are coming for XCN in Q4. Now, what could this be? Even though nothing I say is financial advice, it's just pure speculation at this point. But I feel like maybe there is something that could very well excite me, and I'm going to talk a little bit about my thoughts on this. However, even though nothing I say is financial advice, I'm going to talk about the idea of 25 cents later on in the video when it comes to XCN. But I first want to talk about this post because when it comes to Onyx, first of all, the way to take a look at it is that they do not have a history of saying something that is going to be massive and then it not being massive, right? Because we've seen their track record. Like, for instance, talking about the wallet, we're seeing progression there. They talked about, Goliath, and then they launched the testnet when it comes to that, right? So they've been so far keeping, sort of what they say, in a sense. So I do like their track record in that sense again. So when they say something like this, again, big things are coming for XCN in Q4, I like that. Now, to me, I don't think it's necessarily tied to the price because how can they know what's going to happen in Q4 exactly, right? I mean, there's a lot of variables there. But then at the same time, when it comes to the fundamentals, maybe could this be the mainnet launch of Goliath? It wouldn't surprise me because initially, their plan was to launch Goliath in Q1 of 2026. So we're talking about next year. Now, granted, we're kind of close to 2026, but still, if they could do that earlier, that would be awesome. Now, to my understanding, it's still planned for next year, but when they make a post like this, could this be that they do launch it before 2026? Who knows, right? But it would excite me because Goliath is supposedly this layer 1 blockchain for the world of finance. And with the way we're seeing, altcoins kind of beginning to have a slight recovery, even though primarily it is just kind of like, Bitcoin and Ethereum and some of the bigger altcoins out there that, are kind of doing things right now. But still, if let's say there was a time when, kind of these more mid caps, right, start getting their time to shine, and then maybe they announce something big, right? Maybe it's the mainnet of Goliath, who knows, maybe it's a new partnership, whatever the case may be. I think maybe if that was a catalyst for it, it wouldn't surprise me. So this is why I'm still excited when it comes to Onyx, because I feel like when, let's say there is something big happening, if the price isn't doing good, then not much is really going to happen. Like, for instance, when they launched the testnet of Goliath, yeah, sure, the price moved a little bit, but then it didn't really do much when it comes to XCN, right? In the grand scheme of things, it still had a pretty big pullback. But then, again, Q4, if things kind of trend the way they are as of right now, and let's say some of that volume kind of flows into mid caps, I think this could be hypothetically indeed something that I find pretty big, at least in my perspective. So overall, when I take a look at Onyx, I still like its focus overall because when I take a look at it, yes, Stellar, Ripple, they are very massive, right? But then eventually, at least a lot of my friends, they don't just want to believe in something with a market cap that massive, like, XRP or XLM type of size, where we saw XRP not too long ago reach a market cap of around 200 billion. We saw XLM, even as of right now, or should I say we're seeing XLM currently have a market cap of over 10 billion. That's kind of massive in the grand scheme of things. And not every single person I know wants to just believe in that when they're looking at the space of payments and global trade and finance. So hypothetically, personally for me, that's why I also believe in something like XCN, even though I also believe in Stellar, for instance. But then if I take a look at XCN, going to 25 cents is around a 22x from here. It doesn't need such a ridiculous market cap, to do around a 22x from here because the market cap at that point, considering current circulating supply, would be nearly 9 billion. So it's nothing groundbreaking, just kind of more so of a reasonable market cap, kind of in the grand scheme of things. I get it. In and of itself, that's massive. But considering, again, how when it comes to the payment space, the global trade and finance space, there really isn't that many competitors. Like, for instance, we take a look at XRP and XLM, they're the market leaders, right? But then beyond that, we see something like XDC, we see ZBCN, or should I say ZEBIC, XPR, SwiftCoin, and also, of course, we're talking about XCN as of right now, or should I say Onyx. That's not that many competitors. So when I kind of consider kind of the attention for that market size, and then, kind of maybe how there's not that many famous options to begin with, that market cap in the grand scheme of things doesn't seem like too ridiculous to me, but this is just my perspective. Now also on top of that as well, when I take a look at XCN, sometimes people like to say, oh, the price is kind of boring and all this. Well, actually, in the grand scheme of things, The price as of right now is doing way better than when I first started holding it, not to mention as well. When I was first, believing in XCN, it was a lot harder to really envision what maybe it could do. And keep in mind as well, XCN had that pretty good rally not too long ago without an altcoin season, I think, arguably. It was just kind of like, doing its thing, so to speak. I'm not telling it to do anything, by the way, when it comes to XCN. But if XCN was able to do that back then, without an altcoin season, and let's say there was an altcoin season, if it hypothetically did better than back then, it wouldn't surprise me. Also on top of that as well, I've seen that when it comes to Onyx back then, it had this attention just kind of being viewed as, to me at least, this sort of smaller version of Ripple and Stellar. And XCN still, without an altcoin season, was able to do that. That is so impressive in my perspective. Now, even though Onyx, I think, fundamentally improved ever since then, the price actually hasn't been better than before. And again, some of my friends out there, sometimes they think that, if the price goes down, that means the fundamentals became worse. But I don't agree with that as just a universal thing, right? I don't think about that as, if a project is going down, that means it became bad. I don't think it's always like that necessarily, because if I take a look at the case of Onyx, is it becoming worse or better fundamentally? I think fundamentally it's actually becoming better, but it's just the sentiment wasn't as good. So then, of course, the price went down, even though the fundamentals went up. So if I kind of know that, personally for me, I'm just dollar cost averaging, because if a project actually became better fundamentally and the price became lower than when it was before, I wouldn't mind dollar cost averaging, actually. Now, granted, I'm not telling you to do anything, but I'm still very excited when it comes to Onyx, because again, making a post like that, big things are coming for XCN in Q4, I'm very excited. Because, yeah, sure, we're kind of near the end of this year, but then at the same time, if they have some things planned, that's really going to excite me, because I've been holding XCN for quite some time now, and it's good, to me at least, seeing how they're fundamentally making strides, right? Because back then, I don't feel like they were doing that much. This is just my perspective, but now they're doing more things. I feel like fundamentally it's improved, so I do like it. I also still like kind of the way that Onyx is not giving up, because I see some other projects out there, I feel like they kind of gave up, which I find kind of fascinating in some cases, because, even me, right? I know that the market is going to have ups and downs, let alone, especially a developer, which is probably already very familiar with this space. And then, let's say they give up on a project. In some cases, it just doesn't make much sense to me, because, yeah, sure, the price is going down, but I'm pretty sure they know that the market has these ups and downs. So if a project actually during a bear market, or let's say during a time when markets are not doing the best, they're actually building, I think that's hypothetically making a good, foundation for what could be if, let's say, the markets do pick up and the market sectors that project is focused on does take off, right? So this is why I like what I'm seeing when it comes to Onyx. They just don't give up. I see some other projects out there, I feel like they gave up, and I'm just staying patient and holding, but nonetheless, I'm very excited with the post that they made, but only time will tell. And feel free to subscribe if you enjoyed this video, greatly appreciate it. It's only the Captain, and I'll catch y'all on the next one. I'm out. Peace. Bye.